Hi, this is Privateer Station, and today we bring you day 264 of Russian invasion into Ukraine, with Olexiy Arestovych, advisor to the Office of the President of Ukraine, Lieutenant Colonel, and Mark Feygin, Russian opposition politician. Today they discuss continuation of Kherson liberation. Ukrainian troops are already on the left bank of Dnieper. Why was accreditation of some Western journalists revoked? Putin's army has stolen a raccoon and some other animals from Kherson Zoo. Chernobyevka is closed, but probably a new series of Chaplinka is open. Situation in Pavlovka near Ugledar, where Ukraine is trying to get closer to the railroad and Putin's troops are pushing back. And what could be read behind that public murder of Russian ex-Wagner fighter Nuzhin, the video that went viral in the last couple days. All that in today's program. Before we continue, I need to say a special thanks to all the members who decided to support our channel. It is your support that helps us continue this work. Today's shout out goes to Klavs Preditis. You are fantastic. Thank you so much for continuous support of Privateer Station. And now, day 264. Enjoy. Dear viewers, glad to see you all on Feygin Live. Time is 3 minutes past 10 in Kiev and 3 minutes past 11 in Moscow. We're doing the usual stream, day 264, with Olexiy Arestovich. Olexiy, hello. Yes, hi Mark. Alright, we'll discuss more news today. Almost 170,000 are with us and 30,000 plus click the like button. Please continue to share links to that stream. That does help to get new subscribers, and that does help in turn to get this message to more people. Of course, subscribe to Feygin Live, to Olexiy Arestovich. Feygin Live is almost 1,970,000, and if you are listening or watching that in English, do not forget to subscribe to Privateer Station. That matters a lot. Alright, let's start the stream. We'll bring up the map. There are some evil sayers who are telling very fantastic things. Almost apocalyptic fire at some Golly Pristin, Oleshki. Have you heard anything about that? Yes, I have. Let me zoom into the place that is of interest to us. I need to remind that we're not discussing official messages of our general command. We are discussing what the evil tongues are mentioning in their public posts. So if we look near the town of Ochakov, we need to move the map to the left. It's Nikolaev region. Right across from it, there is Kinburgskaya peninsula that kind of close Liman. It's the known letter reference. I'm sitting on a stone looking at the Chekhov about the military actions back in the day when armies were sitting on that peninsula looking at the Chekhov. So apparently there were some radio electronic troops, a bit of Rangers and a bit of airborne fighters protecting them from the Russian side on that peninsula. So, and they were misbehaving and they were attacking Achakov, and so they are no more. So who's instead of them there now? What's going on? Some cool dudes. Some cool dudes are instead. Oh, interesting. So that one, does it go far? Does that peninsula link to the mainland? Yeah, it kind of does. It's basically left bank. It's part of the left bank of Dnieper. Yeah, the guys who were sitting there across from Ochakov, they were pretty bad dudes. They were shooting up Ochakov, a town where there are a lot of kids. And we also have our 73rd Center of Naval Operations, our Marines, our Ukrainian Navy SEALs, basically. And all of a sudden, something happened to those Russian troops that were right across the water barrier from the... Also, formally, see there is that little dotted line in the middle of that peninsula. That is the separation between Nikolaev and Kherson region. And frankly, now Nikolaev region is completely liberated. By the way, yeah, there are no Russian troops left on that in that location. They're all gone. So, and there is also no intel detachment that was standing there and monitoring our territory, Odessa, Nikolaev, in that direction, because they had some radio electronic intel servicemen there and a lot of equipment. Something happened to them. And first of all, it's very precious troops and specialists and very precious equipment. So something happened with all of them. So that action, does it give any perspective that you perhaps could use that territory as an initial step to the left bank? No, Mark, it's a very difficult geographic location. You can't really transport too many troops or hide them there, so it shouldn't be viewed as that. But it should be viewed as a punishment to those people who shoot up our cities and threaten our citizens. So, speaking of more actions on the left side, there is a small town of Olexiy and Golaya Pristan. You can see the green tents on the map on the right at 3 o'clock and 6 o'clock on the right. So some evil tongues are saying that there is some fighting going on at night. Some vehicles are getting destroyed. MLRS squad was blown up. Some patrols keep disappearing. So, I'm thinking maybe partisans, probably Kherson partisans, decided to say their word. Speaking of, Russia was saying that it's impossible to do partisan activity in Kherson region. Well, it's the left bank, and look what's going on. And this is right directly across from Kherson. Can that be used as a ground for the future offensive? Well, for now it's still partisans. Frankly, I wouldn't be using that area as a purge for the future advancement. It's too many rivers, too many lakes. In order to be a proper positioning for the future offensive, you need something more maneuverable, something where you can move troops around and evade attacks. Here, if you blow up a couple bridges, you can actually be stuck there, so it's not the best place. But Olexiy, by the way, is right across from the bridge. Very interesting place. If you see, guys, that's up north, that green tent, across from Antonovka Bridge. There were a lot of conversations, when are you guys going to the left bank? Well, here we are. Okay, today President Zelensky visited Kherson. I think this was expected. He often does that. He visits the deoccupied territories and supports Ukrainian troops. He visited Izium, we should remind. So he was greeted with a lot of warmth and cheer in Kherson. So, what can you say about that? Do you expect the life in Kherson to be rebuilt fast enough? Mark, I'm not a specialist in civilian life revival. I'm a military specialist, so it's hard for me to address that. What about the collaborationists? Do you guys take them? Do you find them there? Our police is working. Most of them have fled. There are very few who decided to leave. So our investigative services are working. Okay, look, Russian propagandists continue pushing another topic that some companies, some media companies like CNN or somebody, some of the accreditations were revoked. What happened? I am not quite sure. Maybe military command got pissed off that they keep breaking the rules and breaking their agreements. Some people were peddling a weird topic that the accreditation was revoked because president had to come to Kherson first. I think this is a wrong story. This is a very wrong story. The first news usually appear from mobile phones, so there is no competition going between media or president or anything like that. So don't believe that, please. That is a silly rumor. What I think may have happened is that Ukrainian law is shaped in a way that if a journalist dies in the area of responsibility of military commander, this commander will suffer a lot of repercussions. So he'll be writing letters, explanations, visiting courts for years to come after that. So many commanders are very wary of having journalists on the front line with them. And at the same time, journalists do like to show hot stories. And what CNN showed, and some others who were in the town, they basically showed a reel that there are no Russian supporters in Kherson, that the city is full of Ukrainian flags, and what they've showed is how citizens are greeting our entering troops. It was a very strong message, very emotional message. But maybe they did something wrong. Frankly, military don't really like journalists and civilians who go where they shouldn't. But journalists are on a different vector. They, of course, want to do their work as close as possible to the fire. And you should have seen some of the requests I was getting. For example, well, some of them were asking, please let me take a video from the shooting HIMARS vehicle. And it was covered like, well, we won't tell anyone that you let us do that. And I understand their message, I understand what they're trying to do, but when you start to violate things like that in the military conflict area, sooner or later it catches up with you. So it is strongly advised our military to not do that. I suspect, though, that maybe after some repercussions, the accreditation will be reinstated, and they'll just get the talking down to, and I hope everything will be all right with their further activity in Ukraine. Oh, by the way, did you see that raccoon disappeared from Kherson? Yeah, there was that guy from Crimea who stolen one. He actually was pretty cruel. I saw that story. He grabbed him by the table. Some people are saying now that it was an attempt to save raccoon from shooting. Yeah, I'm also not getting. Would it be bad for raccoon in Kherson Zoo? Yeah, they're painting as, oh, it could have been dangerous, there could have been some street fights. So that dude had taken not just a raccoon with him, they showed raccoon, they probably took some other animals. Yeah, and they probably will get Putin's medal for taking the raccoon. By the way, partisans are writing us that in Skadorsky region, they shelled a Ford operating position and an ammo dump, so it is very fiery on the left bank. It's not an operative pause or anything. Oh no. They're disorganized. Their retreat was disorganized one. So who will be giving them respite? We're not. Alright. We've been 13 minutes live, and we have 365,000 watching us live, 91,000 click the like button. Let's walk along the old front. Oh, we will. Don't you worry, I'm not letting you off the hook without finishing the map walk. We are showing the map now. You know, there is an airport, Cheplinka. It's to the east from Kherson. And they had some ammo warehouses, and Russian aviation was positioned there. You can see it's at 5 o'clock. There is a gray airport mark at about 5:30 on the right and the bottom. A little bit above that white road that goes down south to Crimea. So that airport was hit, and it was booming for quite a while. Also, I'm getting a message that mayor of Oleshka, the town across on the left bank, across from Antonov Bridge, is liberated. There's no confirmation yet, but At least we see that message. One needs to understand, left bank, everything down to Crimea is just a naked steppe. There is nowhere to hide. And HIMARS can reach all the way down to Armyansk. See that little town all the way down at 5 o'clock at the bottom of the map, at the mouth of Crimea? So HIMARS can reach all the way there. So did they withdraw to fortifications they built there? Yeah, they've been digging in for a couple months. They were preparing some positions there, and they withdrew to them. But Mark, there is such a concept as battle readiness. You can have good fortifications, you can have enough food, you can have enough uniform, you can have very well-trained soldiers, better than other soldiers. But if they don't want to perform, if they don't want to fight, you're not gonna get anything with these soldiers. By the way, near Olexiy, there's the biggest desert in Europe. Oleshkov testing grounds. It's a pretty famous place. So basically, after retreating, after the hasty retreat from the right bank, they are not in the best mood. To retreat like that and to not lose any morale and continue performing military tasks, you have to be a very high-level professional. Usual retreat does hit your morale. It seriously hits it. Especially after disorganized one, all the commanders have issues finding their people. Where are they? Where the detachments are? For example, a battalion lost a mortar battery. So battalion is not really fully operational. And these things happen during retreats. And it's much difficult to organize again and to continue working with previous motivation and professionalism. It might take weeks after retreat. And who will give them these weeks? Especially it's naked steppes. If you even dig in, you can't hide. So that's why it continues without any pause or break. Shock and awe, we continue pushing. Remember, they tried to do their own shock and awe at the beginning, due to the speed of their action. Now we are doing it. We're doing it on this front. All right, let's continue. Let's go to Zaporozhye, Pavlovka, Ugledar, that area. That actually is Donetsky region. Here it is. So Pavlovka is a very difficult location. They're claiming they took Pavlovka. See that red arrow at the bottom? At 6 o'clock, yes. The battle is raging there. It's very difficult for our troops. They have overwhelming advantage. They have more people. So they gathered whatever they could already, whatever moves and shoots, and they threw that towards Pavlovka. So situation is very difficult, but we have not given up on that town. We continue fighting and holding it. Are you guys gonna help it? Of course we will. It just takes time. But we keep fingers crossed for our guys. And we pay respect to those who perished and to those who continue their heroic resistance in that area. We do hope that help is coming soon and will sort things out. Even if, let's imagine the worst, even if they took Pavlovka, compared to us taking Kherson and taking the right bank, that doesn't really sound well for them. It's not a big success, and we'll take it back, even if we decide to withdraw from that area. So if we go to the eastern front, Avdiivka, those red arrows that you see at the bottom half of the map, they're still fighting very tactical platoon, 2 platoons, maybe a company at best, fighting for a cow farm, fighting for a haystack. So that's what's going on. It's just some random attempts to fight a war for God knows what from the Russian side. Bakhmut, a bit north. It's a mixed message here. See a lot of arrows. We counterattack in some areas, they attack in others. We generally hold the line of the front activity. They pushed in a couple places, we pushed in a couple others, so no worries in that area. Interesting news are coming from Crimean region. Some evil tongues are saying that they want to start evacuating people from Rubezhnoye, Kremennoe, and Severodonetsk because they're possibly at some risk. And if you look at that, these are the towns on the left bank of Oskol River. So they're saying that something is happening, something related to Ukrainian troops is happening in that area. So their public messages and posts are very hot with screams about these towns and that they want to evacuate everybody who wants to leave them. Our general command has not confirmed anything, so we're just talking about what they print in Russia. We can also talk about Sumy and Chernigov region and north of Kharkov. So are they shooting them up from territory of Russia? Yeah, they are. Does anything fly back into the targets on the territory of Russia? Not from us. There is some mysterious third party that once in a while blows things up there, but we do not attack Russia officially. Yeah, I heard there was something blown up in Shebekino. We don't shoot, Mark, but things keep blowing up. I think future historians will need to figure out these mysterious events happening on the Russian side of the border. All right, that's all on the map? Yes. Okay, we've been live for about 21 minutes. Let's go over other news. We do have them. Today, Kommersant published a piece of information that heads of intel of Russian and American intel services are meeting. There are somewhat secret negotiations or talks in Ankara. Right, the secret negotiations that were published in the media, right? Well, yeah, they leaked it, and I think they wanted to impress that they're talking about it. And the message was that these two are meeting not about Ukraine, but about nuclear threat. But of course, we understand that they're talking about Ukraine. And there was a message even stated that there'll be some pictogram produced after this meeting about the possible consequences of the use of nuclear arms for Moscow. Curious message, but so in your opinion, I think Journal or somebody published that Sullivan stated that Kiev needs to be realistic about plans in Crimea, but these are media, these are not official statements, these are just media publications pushing Kiev to negotiations. And I think these news are taken in that context. What if there is some secret negotiation line being established between the West and Moscow without Kiev? So, in your view, that communication between two heads of CIA and Russian foreign intel, military intel, how do you think it may affect the topic of negotiations? I think Russian side is really preparing well for these negotiations. That's why Russian side is looking to evacuate their troops from several Ukrainian occupied cities and that peninsula, and I think they'll be evacuating from more towns very soon. So that's our statement about these negotiations. All right. Have you seen Lavrov, Russian foreign minister, in swim trunks? Yeah, by the way, Ukrainian colors, blue and yellow. And then everything else was American. Phone, watch, Right, right. Do you think that's a sign he's trying to send out? That is a backdrop for negotiations of Xi Jinping and Biden. They, of course, won't tell everything in public, but one of the officially stated things is that they, any nuke is not acceptable, any nuclear usage is not acceptable. And we, by the way, have an official statement from Ukraine. Our military command said that we'll continue our fight, we'll continue liberating our territories from Russian occupation, and that message was sent to American military support and to official channels. So we know Kiev position. Yeah, what else do you want? That's our official position, still the same. And the world decided that he is smart and pretty, citing Evgeni Onegin. So there are a lot of undertones on how that hate is happening. There is a lot of messaging being sent that there is a lever that America owns, the lever of military supplies to Ukraine. So if that lever disappears, there will not be a potential on the Ukrainian side to fight this war. So I am eager to respond to that. Why would United States and Europe need the end of this war, need the soonest end of this war? There'll be crisis. What do you mean? Which crisis? What economic crisis you want to address? A crisis in Russian Federation? Well, the war does affect prices of oil, gas and other things, grains. Then it makes sense that those people who make profit from these high prices of energy resources are not too much in favor of soonest finish of this war. So when people are making these statements, the soonest end of this war is good, they think as civilians, as common people who are living on the front line, who are tired of that. Yes, understandable message, but it is not how politicians see that. They're looking forward to strategic planning and strategic consequences of this. So just finish the war, let Putin's regime survive, let them have the territories they already occupied. And what will the world do in a couple of years or half a year when Russia will accumulate more resources? So I think it's very well understood on political level. All you need to do is literally keep pushing until that hydra of Putin's regime finally collapses. Do you know why am I so calm? I spent a year and a half in negotiations with the Russian side. And for 9 months, every day I keep hearing about negotiations. And the only thing that is changing, it's already the 5th retreat of Russian army. There'll be 6th, 7th, and so on. I think by the 10th, it'll be all over. But if people want to talk about negotiations, we cannot forbid them from doing so, so let them do. And of course, there are people like officials from Russian Federation who ask about these negotiations, and there is a ton of Telegram conspiracy theorists who also peddle this topic. Let them do it. What is your opinion about the possible outcome of the G20 Summit? We already expect that the message from Ukrainian president will likely cover the topic of possible exclusion of Russian Federation from G20. I understand the call of president, his appeal, and I would support that, of course. I, however, doubt that Russia will be expelled from G20 because it has a lot of countries with different agendas in that group. There is Indonesia, there is India, there is China. So at least we can state our official position. You heard me, I want Russia to be excluded even from the Stamp Collecting Society and Chess Federation. Putin's Russia has no business of being a member of any international organization. The regime that commits crimes daily, military crimes daily. So that's one side of things. The other side is G20 is not a place where they make difficult decisions. It's more a platform where they compare their views, where they streamline some common goals, where they figure out new possible allies. I think the main news piece of G20 will be a meeting of Biden and Xi Jinping. I don't know if that can be made a whole goal of this G20 summit, but it definitely is one of the limelight events of it. But they've already stated their official position: no nukes and no threats of using nukes. After that statement, the risk of use of any nuclear weapons on this front is below any statistically reasonable, statistically important numbers. So each of them came out and calmed their own populations down. There was not a joint message. They probably will have given some messages, some statements, some parts for joint message, but they'll probably be reviewing and negotiating over that first, before it's made public, before they come out and talk about it. I need to remind that back in the day, Kissinger's visit to China, Secretary of State changed a lot in China policy, and China split apart from USSR and eventually rose to power, and USSR eventually collapsed. So just one visit of American official can be linked to very big geopolitical changes. And of course, they will continue talking about other things, probably other economic reasons, about ecology, their favorite topic, and some economic issues. But Russia, of course, will be a big part of that discussion. Okay, I got you. You know, another thing, I quoted Jim Carrey so many times from Dumb and the Dumbest, and somebody in Russia heard me, and they included Jim Carrey into the sanctions list. I heard it was his grandson? No. It was grandson of Bandera and Jim Carrey himself. So I think they realized they need to address my statements. Because, you know, that phrase from the John Kerry's hero in Dumb and the Dumbest, you're making something completely idiotic that tops any of the idiocy you previously committed, but I'm still believing in you. So, yeah, Carrey is a good guy. Anyway, let's go talk about a difficult topic. We've been 32 minutes live. I had another stream, just another hour. We discussed the story with Evgeni Novikov and his murder with a sledgehammer. We think he was murdered, indeed. This is not a staged video. Those people who have missed it. So there is a viral video where a guy wearing Ukrainian camo, who is named to be Evgeni Novikov. He was an ex-convict who was in Russia prison serving 20-year sentence, and then he agreed to go to the front. And after he was captured and somehow got back to the hands of Wagner, they affirm on that video that it's that person, and then they execute him. So he actually gave an interview when he was in captivity in Ukraine, I think on Ramina's channel, and somehow Wagner got their hands on him, and they're discussing what the reasons are. How could Ukraine change that person for, I guess, Ukrainian troops, and now he is dead. Then there is another group saying that perhaps he wanted to join Freedom of Russia Legion, but either failed a polygraph or some other tests, but or for other reasons, he could not join that troop. So that creates additional risk for those who possibly are thinking about using the same pathway to not surrender to Ukraine, because there is no guarantee that you will not be exchanged back to Russia. We want you to say something about that story. And I don't know if you have any additional data, but maybe just your thoughts on this topic. So he was killed not on the territory of Ukraine, for sure not in Kiev. Maybe on occupied territories, but not on our official jurisdiction. So all these statements that we steal people in Ukraine and we execute them, that's fake. The dilemma is difficult. On one hand, we cannot refuse exchanging prisoners. According to military laws, all the prisoners have to be returned. Well, there are some caveats. The ones who don't want to, they don't have to. Then we don't know if you want it or not. And also, as a lawyer, as an attorney, how do you see public, out-of-court, extrajudicial execution? And yeah, they're trying to push the limelight from that, the accent from this. Somebody can just take a Russian citizen and sledgehammer him to death. So in a normal world, there would be police and criminal investigation going. But in this one, they're actually confirmed that Prigozhin clown even commented on it. So Russia, in this regard, starts to remind ISIS more and more. I would also want to hear the opinion of Pope on this matter and ask the West, why are you not negotiating with ISIS? And we should negotiate with that Putins Isis here. But looking at the conclusions they're trying to make, that Russian military should not be surrendering to Ukrainians, I think these are fake. These are false conclusions, because he was not taken. He did not give up. No, he was captured. That's known for sure. Yes, at least that's the information I have. He did not voluntarily surrender, because what I'm asking is, I heard that he was doing other functions, he didn't even have weapons. Yeah, he was organizing, he was part of the grave team. He was basically managing the corpses and taking whatever they can remove from the front line. But technically he was a member of the battle unit, performing a battle duty on the front line. Doesn't matter what he had in his hands, he was a member of the military taken during the time when he was performing his duties. So, and again, going back to Russian Federation, they can kill everybody whom we exchange back. They can execute 1, 10, 20, 2,000. Are we responsible for these actions? Of course not. Of course, yeah, I understand. Ukraine did not kill him, right? No, Ukraine saved his life. And then that happens on the territory of Russian Federation. So that's Russian government that is responsible, bears responsibility for these events. What can be thrown at us, though, that we gave him out? Problem is, we can't really determine what happened there, or it cannot be publicly discussed. These are inner kitchen. This is inner kitchen dealings of the special services, and they're usually very reluctant to discuss any of that during the war. Perhaps after the war we can get more details. Today I'm getting, by the way, another message right now that we had 2 people who voluntarily crossed the front line and joined the prisoners' camp in Ukraine, and they're actually volunteering to go to serve in the freedom of Russia. So nobody's going to give them up. They want to serve, they want to fight. We will be glad to have them. How many people are serving in the Legion of Russia? Several hundreds, a bit over a couple of thousand, I think, but yeah. This is, I think, should be treated as Prigozhin propaganda. This is some macro attempt to manage events. See, that's what's happening with you when you surrender, and we get you back. We get our hands back on you. So that's the message they're trying to send. What worries me is the destiny of a person. regardless of how criminal he was. And, some people are in Ukraine are stating, browsing his social media and saying that he was full of hatred to Ukraine. Well, here's the thing, it's a bad argument. He was an inmate. An inmate doesn't have his own opinion, really. He's not free to express it. He also was serving in Wagner, so another not free community. He could not express his opinions openly there. And there is another argument. We have to give up the captured person if he or she wants to be given back. We also bear no responsibility for what is going on in Russia. So they essentially finished their own person for a picture, and in the meantime also wanted to kick Ukraine. And this is all done on the sidelines, as Ukrainians are weak and they gave up this guy to us. No, that was not the message. They just published the execution and pointed finger and said that's what happens with everybody who surrenders. I personally feel sorry, feel pity to that person, like I feel to everybody who dies in that war. But I understand that in today's Russia, a person can be publicly executed, extrajudicially, in a very brutal manner. You can take responsibility for that publicly, and nothing will happen to you. This is ISIS. This is pure ISIS. It looked exactly the same there. They enjoyed it back then. They were publishing videos. Remember in Syria, they executed somebody? Yeah, they killed somebody with a sledgehammer, and then they sawed him in parts. Yeah, and nobody was punished. So that's what Putin's Russia is turning into. I understand how they're trying to peg certain things on us, but they won't be able to. It's their jurisdiction. You know how information resistance is done? They could have taken a person who wasn't even at any media interviews, who wasn't even known until this video, and they could have done the same thing. They could have achieved the same effect and could have had the same effect. Just would not make that big of a splash because that person would not have been on the interviews with Ramina and other bloggers and journalists in Ukraine. And nothing stops them, really. You look at that situation now, they can continue doing that, unfortunately. We have no control over that situation. Well, that's the point. I want to highlight that that person was not murdered in Ukraine. In Ukraine, he was alive. He was giving interviews on the media. That's another question. Why was he given up? That probably deserves investigation. I heard another rumor. I don't know if that's right or not, if that's how it happened, but there could have been a question stated like, you either give a person like this person to us, or we execute 20 Ukrainian soldiers. I heard exactly that version. Yeah, that is a possibility. War is a very ugly thing, and sometimes you need to sacrifice one to save more. And sometimes you have to sacrifice your own people to save more. So I'm sure there'll be investigation going after the war. Will it be taken out to the public sphere? I don't know, to the court of public opinion? I don't know, because games of special services sometimes are pretty rough, and often they're not made public for that exact reason. If these actions are done to provide for their security, an argument can be made that it's much better that large layers of society at large, should not be aware of all the details and dealings there. Okay, we are at 40-something minutes. Please subscribe to Feygin Live, subscribe to Olexiy Arestovych, and if you are watching or listening that in English, do not forget to click subscribe button for the privateer station. And tomorrow we have a stream at 10 p.m. Kiev time, right? Yes, everything is on schedule. Do not miss that one. Thank you again, Olexiy, and please continue sharing links to that stream and clicking the likes. See you tomorrow. Goodbye.